Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Let's talk a bit of security today. Day before yesterday, we all witnessed, it looked like a spectacle. I'm talking about when the suspended governor of Central Bank was granted bail, and he couldn't leave there. There then seemed to be something of a tussle between two government agencies, DSS and the Correctional Service, as to who would, have custody of suspended CBN Governor Emefiele. That was something of a spectacle, and so we want to find out today, or at least talk about it, whether interagency rivalry is actually crippling the fight against insecurity and crime generally, whatever the crime is. But the kind of interagency rivalry that we saw there, what does it portend? Well, our guest this morning, we got Mr. Lanre Suraj. Mr. Lanre Suraj is a security expert. He's an anti-corruption crusader and is chairman of HEDA. Good morning, Mr. Suraj.
Thank you, Mr. Folari. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Indeed, and also the HEDA, maybe so I can quickly explain that. What is it?
Oh, HEDA. It's called HEDA, which is Human and Environmental Development Agenda.
Ah, okay. Okay, that's clear now. That's clear. So, we know that there have been underpinnings of tension, should we say, sometimes between government agencies. Indeed, sometimes you see it within the armed forces themselves. You see, one branch, not being too happy with the other branch, and whoever happens to think that he can assert, that they can assert their authority at the time, they do go ahead and do so. Now, I'm referring specifically to day before yesterday at the Godwin Emefiele hearing where he was granted bail. He was rearrested. But before that could happen, there was something of a fracas. Give me what do you think about that, and what does this portend really for the fight against insecurity and the special kind of crimes that attracts the attention of those two government agencies?
Thank you very much. I think it is very important that we clearly make this, very loud and clear to the current government that it will not be tolerated, and it should not also be in the interest of the country if there is this lack of coordination between the agencies. Unfortunately, the last government actually has the highest record of in-government rivalry you have within ministers, and the same thing also goes within the law enforcement agencies, because there wasn't really any serious form of coordination. And I think it also boils down to the inability of the president, as at that time, to take full control of the activities of institutions, persons, and also government agencies, ministries and agencies alike, which was actually responsible for the obvious level, and I can say to a large extent, recklessness, amongst the appointees and also even elected officers. And it is that we want to really hope that this new government, especially with the character and the pedigree of the person appointed as a national security advisor, that quite a number of the activities of the law enforcement agency, anti-corruption agency, and security agencies will actually be properly coordinated with also accountability, responsibility, and at the same time, wherever it is necessary, people will have to also face penalties for their action. I was expecting between that 2 days ago and now that there should have been official release from the government, at least from the government, to reassure Nigerians that this is not going to be the kind of trajectory that would be seen under this government. Unfortunately, not even a week after the president came in, but just like 2 days after the president came in, there was the whole conflict or fracas, almost near fracas between the EFCC and the DSS over the long-held of occupancy of the EFCC office in Ikoyi in Lagos. And that is not the kind of thing that any country would want to see. But the implication of that for both security, the fight against corruption, the fight against crime, is something that we would really need to also discuss here.
Because this matter, it actually hurts us. There are pictures now from that day. Okay, they've taken them away. It was just for a split second. But people probably use that to be able to remember if indeed there was any chance of them forgetting, because the pictures were quite dramatic. I mean, it actually got as bad as that. It was sometimes all these kind of things might go on, but there will be sort of what is it? Covert. They won't come out like this. But there you have you can see what I'm talking about. So the symbolism, the whole world is watching and was watching on the day this was first broadcast, and we're gonna have to, as you said, not a statement yet. DSS must have had its reasons, but the fact is, people know that there's a certain order, there's a certain process, a certain procedure, and if the DSS went this way and ultimately achieved the aim of rearresting the suspended former central bank governor, what exactly was playing on in there is what people are going to want to know, because the DSS itself can't be. It's not a rogue organization. So why it behaved the way it behaved to just achieve its objective is what a lot of people, and you don't even need to be a lawyer, a lot of people are asking questions. What's the right procedure? Why was there such a tussle? Why did people in government not know these procedures? So to obviate the need for the show that we saw.
Yeah, I think it would be important, and so we don't just treat some of these cases in isolation. As much as the display of DSS at that point was uncivil, it is actually condemnable. Like I said, putting it in context, it is becoming really also a challenge for us as a country, especially when you want to hold people accountable. I mean, these would not have happened where it is just an ordinary citizen that is affected or at the center of the issue. So even the correctional service also has a huge amount of blame to actually also take responsibilities for what happened. It is because it is the character of the person that is there. It is because of the level of influence of the person that is at the center of it, which is a Mayfair. The unfortunate thing is the fact that you would have seen, and that for me was originally like a concern. If you look at how people get out of court with bail, and it becomes extremely difficult for them to successfully get prosecuted by the system, either by the court, which would continue to grant adjournment. And I have a very pathetic case involving the Senator Stella Odua, who has been arraigned since 2019, and not until last week was the EFCC able to successfully bring her into the dock to actually also read charges to her. Between 2019, that is going to almost 4 years. And now, what did the judge do? The judge just simply said, okay, right, I'm granting her bail. Not only just granted her bail, she even ordered that the file should be transferred to the Office of the Attorney General. There was no application from the Office of the Attorney General to take over, that prosecution. When you look at some of these experiences, it also really goes down, especially to where you have a law enforcement agency that really want to do the work. We can't also pretend not to know that there would always be conflict, either we like it or not. It cannot be for the altruistic reasons where the two agencies want to do their work professionally, but at the same time, they have different module or they have little different understanding. There might be conflict which would not necessarily lead to tussle. There might be conflict where one agency wants to do the right thing and the other agency is compromised and wants to truncate or frustrate the action and activities of the other agency. And the third one will be where the both of them are compromised and acting under some untoward influences to actually deal with the situation. And either of that is not the kind of situation that we wanted. The first one is even still a little bit understandable, where the both of them wants to discharge their duty and there can be overlapping, responsibilities between them. But these are things that can be properly coordinated. And like I said, I don't see for any reason where the staff of the correctional service, and I'm happy that there was a statement that will be reviewed, would also go into any conflict with the DSS or the tussle with the DSS over a suspect, because the court is still there. You can simply apply back to the court and say the suspect was not handed over to us. How do you want to go and physically take charge of the suspect? The suspect was brought to court by the DSS. And you would also understand how some very ridiculous, very funny, unfortunately, that is where you also think that Nigerians are not really ready for the fight against corruption or even against crime and insecurity. Some very fictitious and funny lawyers put themselves together and say they are NGOs, the coalition to free Emefiele, to go and start applying for Emefiele. And you want to ask yourself, where was the antecedent or even record of this? There was none. It's just as part of the emergence for them to take activities, take control of how they want to coordinate the freedom of Emefiele. It is not about Emefiele answering to some of the charges, some of the issues that have been raised, against him. These are not guys that have been known to even champion, the freedom or the protection or the right of the ordinary citizens or some other ordinaries. But this is also targeted. So when you see the campaign that is already been building up around Emefiele, it will tell you, if you're not careful, that within the same Nigeria and also the law enforcement system, you would find Emefiele almost on the street, if not possibly contesting for election come 2027, for the presidency of Nigeria, like he attempted to do in 2023. But the citizens, the other actors, we must allow the institutions to also do their work. And I don't want a situation where a number of stakeholders, the lawyers, the courts, the prison service, would want to also compel other agencies that are intolerant of the level of compromise. I mean, we have people in prisons who are still impregnating their wives when they are actually in custody. You have quite a number.
I beg your pardon, Larry. Forgive me for interrupting, Larry. Okay, welcome back. And our guest this morning is Larry Suraj. Mr. Suraj is a security expert, anti-corruption crusader. And we've been talking about what the situation where intergovernment agencies are rivaling so hard that it could actually degenerate into outright fisticuffs or close to fisticuffs. And, Larry, again, you noticed, in addition to all you've said, there was then, but still, since it's recorded, it has happened, people saw it, there seems to be an ominous aspect to it, because some operatives there of the DSS were wearing balaclavas or ski masks or full face masks so that they could not be identified. And you wonder, why? What is going on? How can you have balaclava wearing or full face mask wearing operatives in a court? In a court of law, we're in peacetime, there is no war. So these kind of shows, I just don't know what it is supposed to say. And you don't try to hide your whole face from recognition unless you have misgivings about what you'll be doing while wearing the mask. So there's that aspect too. And we're talking about accountability here and trying to hold people accountable. So it really is a very complex thing. And then, as you pointed out earlier, as we speak, there hasn't been an official statement, never mind official, any kind of statement to my recollection, or any kind of reference to the event one way or the other. So, Larry, Oh dear, we might have lost that
Hello?
connection.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, yes, you've come back now. Did you hear
Oh,
my
thank you. Oh,
Did you hear
sorry.
my
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, I did. I did very
Okay.
well. I did.
Okay.
The wearing of the face mask, I mean, let's start from there. It is not something that is peculiar to the DSS, So you will see FBI, CIA agents even doing the same thing, depending on the kind of operations that is associated with it. So when you're fighting or you're going to invade what you would consider some of the enclaves of notorious high-profile criminals like the drug barons and the rest of that, it needs to measure of protection,
Indeed.
for officers so that their families, not just because of them, so that the people cannot go after their families for the operations that are undertaken on behalf of the state. But that is
So
not
that's
when
the
you go to
correct
court.
use. One can
Yeah,
understand that
absolutely.
use.
Exactly. So that is not when you go to court. That is not when you go with somebody like a Mayfield. This is not like I mean, what high-level criminal or security threat to the system that would necessitate this kind of coverage that is totally wiping away element of accountability for the people that are there. There's no doubt in the fact that the DSS will know each and every of the operatives that was involved if there's a need for them to actually hold them accountable. But the system would never appreciate this under a civilian regime. And the country would not also want to tolerate this kind of level because it gives that sense of untouchability to the people that are involved. It gives them some whole sense of, infallibility to or also some extent. So this we can't continue to condone, and that would go to the not just the top level and hierarchy of the DSS. It goes to the office of the National Security Advisor. It goes to the office of the president as well. To make the DSS understand we're under a civilian regime. And when there's a need for this level of action, I think it is important that people are ready to give account of their activities. But I would, without actually in holding any brief, and I must say, holding any brief for the DSS, because this is highly condemnable. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
We, as citizens, must also be extremely careful not to create situations and give justification for some of the things. So we don't want a situation where, because a suspect is taken to court, people then devise the means of either invading the court without allowing also the court to take, the appropriate full control of the situation, or some threat of the likelihood of freeing the suspect from custody of the law enforcement agencies. So these are very critical when we start creating some measure of impression using the media and all the rest of that ahead when suspects are taken to. So we should allow the institutions of government to actually operate as they are meant to be.
Let me bring in Mr. Mohammed, who has called in from Abuja. Good morning to you, Mr. Mohammed.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Good morning, the guest.
Good morning, sir. Go ahead,
Good
please.
morning.
Yes, sir. Yeah, in as much as what happened in Ikoyi High Court is not something good to write about, but so I just read an article now written by somebody. It's on the media now. Assuming you have this line has WhatsApp, I would have sent it to you. The problem there is the two agencies refuse to agree by themselves. The DSS have a warrant secured from another high court based on the offenses Mr. Emefiele have. Because if you remember, they just charge him on arms and ammunition only. The other charges of terrorism, they did not charge him there. That's why they came with their warrant of arrest from another high court of the same jurisdiction of that of Ikoyi High Court. That is why, because they preempt that maybe Ikoyi High Court may give Emefiele a bail. That is why they now come with ready. They even show it to the correctional service officers that they are Oga. He refused to abide by it. They say that he must effect He must implement the judgment passed by this High Court judge now. That is what causes the problem. Assuming they agreed, all is suspect. DSS and correctional, they are federal government agencies.
Exactly.
Even if they took it to DSS,
Exactly.
if they want to collect it from there, they can go to DSS and collect the suspect. Since they have arrest warrant, these correctional service officers, they should have understand. And they say, okay, no problem. Since you have arrest warrant, no problem. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it would have solved the matter. All this fracas would not have happened.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. But I think as Larry Suraj was hinting at there, one would expect that intergovernment agencies would somehow have a way of coordinating their efforts. After all, they're all on the same side, I would take a guess, and most right-thinking members of society would also assume that whether DSS, whether the correctional services, all of these people are all on the same side of the law, of upholding the law. And so that's where it gets scary, when balaclava-wearing people are interfering to the ordinary person. That's what it looks like. But you've just explained that some people have been analytical and have been seeing that, look, they're actually moving with, some instrument that purportedly would have justified their action. Larry, what would be your thought on that line of reasoning?
No, just like I said, really, from the beginning, there can only be two, one of three options, like three of them, the two of them acting in the interest of the state. One of them is compromise, the other is a little bit also doing the right thing, or the three of them are compromised and are actually not acting in the public interest or the interest of justice. But if the DSS has another warrant of arrest, and that was from another court, what would have happened simply is the fact that the bail granted by that court is only to the effect of the charges in that court. And if there's a need to still have the suspect in custody based on the warrant from another court, except that original warrant was discharged and bail granted from the other court, the suspect is still not yet free to actually either enjoy that bail. And so the correctional service cannot insist on a bail that is also superseded by another warrant of arrest, which has been granted to DSS. So if there are still charges to be answered, and that was why I said it from the beginning, that I think the correctional service will also act differently. I wouldn't want to in any way take it for granted that the correctional service having a suspect like Emefiele in the prison is almost like a pot of soup of people that would be in the prison. So for me, I think we must understand where people and also institutions are operating from before we just conclude that, things are just normal.
All right, then. Let me quickly take another break, Larry. We'll be right back. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back. And we're looking at interagency rivalry, such as we saw day before yesterday at the hearing at the High Court of suspended former governor of Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele. Upon being granted a 20 million naira bail, he couldn't actually step out of the court before a power struggle seemed to erupt between the Nigerian Correctional Services and the Department of State Security, DSS. And so we're looking at that, and I'm happy that we have Mr. Dennis Amakre now. Mr. Amakre, as we know, is a security consultant. He's also a former operative in the DSS, former assistant director at the DSS. Good morning to you, Dennis. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Yori.
Yes. Now, Dennis, the question that we'll need someone like you to help answer, the balaclava-wearing security DSS operatives in a civilian environment, no war, nothing like that, no drug cartel busting, none of that. It was a straightforward civilian and a straightforward criminal charge. So one wondered, those pictures didn't do us much credit as a country when they were seen around the world. Is there a reason why, quite apart from the unseeming, the unseeming aspect of that tussle, why did they have to come out like that in those identity concealing contraptions?
Okay, Yori, thank you for that question. I have discussed this with you before. First of all, balaclava is a normal, is a standard gear. It's a standard gear for Secret Service police, wherever they're going out for operations, except they don't want to wear it. Otherwise, it's a standard gear for them to wear.
I see.
So they wear that. Yes, they wear that. Now again, you find out that if they go to anywhere, it doesn't matter whether it's a court or a war or anywhere. Here in the United States, you find out that the FBI, sometimes when they go to houses, they break into the houses. They have a warrant of arrest or a warrant of search, and they break into the houses wearing balaclava so that you don't later come around looking for who was that person, recognize that person, because they still live in the society,
Yeah, because now that you make that point, okay, I get what you're saying, but again, still staying in the U.S. where you're, reaching us from, there are body cams for police because society wants to know that their law enforcement officers are behaving according to the law. So you will wear a body camera. So whatever the engagement, there is a record of it. But even as you say that the Secret Service over there also do this kind of a thing. But I don't know. Well, I don't know how they do it because you see Secret Service people around the president, for example, no balaclava is in sight. Maybe it's not considered an emergency operation. So that contradiction between the police in a place like that, the US, I think in the UK as well, maybe other places, must wear body cams as they engage with the public. But
okay.
You see how it will confuse a non-professional.
Yes, Yori. Let me explain further. In the secret police, or what we call the SSS or the DSS today, there are different departments. There are people who are called protective services. Those are the ones you see with governors or the president or their families and stuff like that. Those ones are usually in suits, and then you can see their face. Okay. Now there is another set of people who are going for special operations, and those ones wear balaclava, because they are going for special operations.
Okay.
So. And then, of course, if you go to their office, you see the people that are normally dressed and walking around the office, which is a different set of people again. And then, of course, there are another set of people you don't even know, and those are the ones under deep cover.
Okay.
You might even have those in your office. You don't know them. Nobody knows them. Even the DSS don't know them. Okay, so this is the kind of setup that they have.
So therefore, the balaclava is a form of a deep cover in the sense that it's not.
No, it's a form of just covering your immediate identity. The immediate identity.
Okay. Now, what are your thoughts, Dennis? Thank you very much for explaining that about the balaclava and all of that. By the way, I looked it up and I found that at konga.com you can actually buy one for 4,500. So I was looking at wait a minute, you don't even need a license. You don't even need a license to be able to buy this unless if I were to order one, I would just get a response of, do you have a license? Should you be buying this? That kind of a thing. But away from that for a moment.
Use it for?
Away from that for a moment. This rivalry, it is thought that it could actually cripple the efforts towards fighting insecurity if you can't have two federal government agencies agreeing among themselves? Then how can we have hope for the fight against insecurity then?
Yes, I think we've already said it most of the time. Even the new security advisor, when he came in, said it, that, he's going to strengthen the synergy between the security forces, the security agencies, so that they can work together. They can work together. It is something, this has been an age-long problem. If you remember, we have even discussed when the police and army were fighting in Lagos.
That's right.
Sometimes you have even police fighting police.
That's right.
Mobile fighting the people in black. So I was not really surprised when what happened in the court happened, because I think the prison people were trying to be very smart about it, and it didn't pay off well. Because, yes, if you listen to the court process, you will hear where the lawyer of Emefiele requested that he would want Emefiele to be in prison custody instead of with the DSS. Now, when the judge was finally granting the bail, he also now added it that
they should remand him.
Emefiele can be remanded in the prison custody.
Yes.
Now, before he mentioned that, the superintendent, or what is his rank, the head of the Ikoyi prison, was not there. So it's just like the owl trying to see, and the owl is very, very clever. And they've already discovered that there is going to be a funny thing going on. So, of course, before they know it, the prison head was there with his vehicle to take him, not even with what do they call it now? A Black Maria, because that's what prisons use, but they brought a pickup, so the owl was very, very ready for it, and that's what
Okay. Larry, you see, Dennis is not going to say much more than that. But here we have his own expatiation on the subject matter. I'm only trying to piece around what we've heard from Dennis and yourself. There's a special interest in this particular suspect. I have heard, but I don't know how much I can say about having heard. But one has heard that, the charges are so very grievous that the DSS has reason to believe that should the suspect, be able to enjoy the bail that he was awarded by the judge in court, it would somehow compromise their investigations. Now, I don't know. Lawyers are going to really have an interest, an opinion on this. Because sometimes we hear that it doesn't matter what you think, it only matters what the law says. And in this case, the court has spoken. And I don't know why they couldn't go with what the court has said. One, because we're a democracy. Two, because we uphold the rule of law and independence of the different tiers. And then start even if it is a laborious process, start the laborious process of reapprehending the suspect, rather than do what was done, where it now seems as if there are some agencies that don't need to obey the law. But it must be said, the DSS also said that they came with an enabling document. So you see trouble now.
Yeah, you see, I mentioned this from the beginning, and it is important that we address the societal challenge of actually having successful prosecution of high-profile persons or suspects in the system. And I will only pray that the judiciary will actually understand this, not because that we have also undermined administration of criminal justice system and procedure. It is also that this enhances insecurity in the system. So the moment many of the high-profile, suspects don't bother that you are taking them to court anymore, because once they get to court, the next thing is just to get a bail. And once they get a bail, the next thing is to frustrate the prosecution process. I mean, as a country, and I think the judiciary, by now, without even prompting, and I mean, the lawyers, quite a number of them are not really bothered about the implication of their actions for the country, for our image, or for the system. So they are not bothered. All they just want is allow the suspect or the criminal, with possibly even without answering to the charges.
Okay.
And that is not what the law is meant to do.
Okay. One moment. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Larry. One moment. But as Mr. Dennis Amakre was saying, he used the sort of an allegory. The owl is a wise bird. It sees. So, well, when it comes to the owl and it's seeing, we now know that, oh dear, we've gone sort of, is it covert? Yes, we've gone covert. So the DSS knows what it was doing, whether what it was doing that it knows was in conformity with the law and with the whole, shall I say, in favor of the country is another question. Let me hear what Mr. Abubakar in Kaduna has to add to the conversation. Good morning, Mr. Abubakar.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
How live with you? Very interesting today. You are showing a good drama today, a show of force. Well, no problem. But let me just concentrate on the victim, that is civilian governor, former MFLA. You see, I think this is just a drama and it will just take a long time, or maybe at least it will attract Nigerians for a while, keep them busy. But I don't think there is anything that will come out of it after, because this is an important and lucrative business. These two sets of securities are hostile, because I know he is maybe a good customer to them. If not, if Nigeria is serious, this is a man who put billions of Nigerians into difficulties. He just introduced a hard time, unnecessary hard time for Nigerians. Some cripple, some die, some business crumble, yet they have nothing to sue him with, or they have no any criminal charge they will nail against him, except only they arrest him with a gun without license. Is it not enough for a man to be hanged with this type of difficulty he put the whole Nigerians into, and they are not talking of that one? We Nigerians.
Yeah, but sir, Mr. Abubakar, as you know, the court is going to concern itself with the charges before it. Any other thing that, such as you are adding, if it's not in front of a judge, I don't know that he's going to take those kind of things into consideration. And so we're looking at the law here and how the law operates. And
I think what Mr. Abubakar is saying is actually questioning the charges that DSS.
Please, okay. Go. Can you just round off, Mr. Abubakar? Thank you. Continue, but round off quickly. We got your point.
We will never forget that man.
Okay.
We will never forgive. We will never forget that man.
Now these. Okay, Mr. Abubakar, thank you very much for calling in. Now those are the kind of sentiments that are not going to be relevant to a judge or a court of law. I would like to suggest, Larry, because you came in on it.
Yeah, actually, because that's the truth of the matter. Because I mean, it's right to the extent of the charges that are preferred against Emefiele by DSS. But I working with quite a number of the security and law enforcement agencies, and with the experience of some of these investigations and the rest of it, it is not something that comes that easy. I was going to actually allude to one of the most, to the best of my own personal knowledge, most effective collaboration between the DSS and EFCC was when Maina was to be actually repatriated from Niger Republic, when he actually absconded from the country to answer to charges. And when the EFCC got intel that he was in Niger, it took the support of the DSS to not only track him up onto when he moved into Nigeria, but also arrested and handed him over to the EFCC for effective prosecution. So there are some of those areas, but I can tell you, charging Emefiele tomorrow, Nigerians, just like he said, this is the sentiment of majority of Nigeria. You give quite a number of them the opportunity. They don't even want Emefiele to be tried. They want him to just be convicted because of the hardship.
Okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, in the face of the law, it is not the sentiment.
No.
It has to be the evidence, and that is not what you come by just in this. And it happens in international jurisdiction.
Indeed.
You will see the arrest of Oscopi and the rest of them.
You're very right.
The
problem, Dennis, the problem is that when I say it's a problem, it's a situation around the world, actually, not just in Nigeria. The DSS and its those kind of organizations all around the world, they're not known to be willing sharers of information at their disposal. So that's why I said the DSS knows what it is doing. And perhaps it might be difficult for them to come and now put all of that out in the public space before a judge. But that's where I think it was the president who said in a particular context that democracy can be tough, it can be difficult, but it is the path that has been chosen. And democracy doesn't allow for any of these opaqueness is one of the problems that we have in this conversation. Dennis, I'm going to come to you, but let me bring Tony in. Tony has called in from Abuja. Good morning to you, sir. Well, I lost Tony. So, Dennis, as I was saying, agencies like your former agency, it is not their habit to be sharing information at their disposal. And so this now makes it quite tedious how to know what to think. Because I think I have heard that they believe, the DSS believes that to allow Mr. Emefiele to go on bail would compromise the investigation, if I'm not misspeaking. But I think that's the kind of reason that they would be that. But somebody else called in and said, wait a minute, also, no, this is not security matter. Mr. Emefiele's presence is a business. And that's why they're tussling between the two of them. DSS on one hand, and the correctional service on the other, as to, I can't lose this business. Not that I know what that means. But Dennis, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. It's very, very funny. The implications are very, very funny. I mentioned the owl. Do you know that the owl is the logo of the DSS?
I see.
It's the logo of the DSS. Look at it again.
Yeah. Okay,
so that's the only bird that can see very clearly in the night.
That's right.
And there are many things they know that they are not even telling but they don't have to tell the public. And it is the only bird that can rotate its head 360 degrees.
That is correct again. That's another fact.
Now, these guys, we know, we've been dealing with the SCS. The DSS will always send their reports to the NCS. Remember the Kuje prison breaking? The DSS sent them almost 20-something reports telling them about this particular thing, and they were not taking it seriously. Okay. And now this is a situation where if they've not even made corrections to the structures that were suggested to them. Now, we say the DSS has come out to say that this man is a flight risk. And it is very, very true that he could be a flight risk, because he has flown once, during the previous administration. When the thing was hotting up, he left. He went and stayed overseas and listening to Nigeria when everything was okay. He stayed there for a while before he came back, And now, why should the lawyers want him in prison custody? Because we know that the prison don't take their perimeter security very, very seriously. The integrity is poor if he wants to break out, or they can arrange, because if you see
I see
how big net worth individuals, when they are brought into that Ikoyi prison, the reception they get, is something else, So they want him, and of course the head have to leave his office. He does not go to court every day, but he has to go there. Just like your guest has said, this is a big dinner coming ahead, so they have to go down there and see what it is. But he finds it very difficult. He cannot even make a move in the DSS. That's why his lawyers want him out of there.
Well, okay. So, but again, let me just get this in. What are your thoughts on whether this modus operandi of the DSS, whether it can compromise the integrity of the struggle against insecurity in the country? If the DSS, from what we've heard now, it's an owl, it sees, all those symbolism we take on board. It can see what other people can't see. This kind of behavior, are you concerned that it could compromise security, if not put fear in the land? And that's not the interest. That's not what democracies usually want to do.
Somebody who is not a criminal or somebody who is not a security risk does not have anything to fear.
Okay.
Not at all. Because a lot of people, is a criminal who sees a policeman and start running away, But you don't have to fear the DSS, because the DSS is doing the national service. Okay. And many people, I don't want to, you don't have time for me. I would have told you some of my experiences. Where we invite people to come, and they even went for 7 days fasting and 7 days dry fasting and everything before they come. And when they come and I finish with them within 5 minutes and they go away, and they said, "Excuse me, sir, can I go?" I said, "Of course you can go." He said, "Oh my God."
Okay. Contrary to what they had expected. Okay, so Larry, thank you, Dennis. We've completely run out of time, but Larry, it is what it is. We have it on our hands, but we've just heard there that, look, if you are a law-abiding person in all particulars, then you have no reason to fear any of this kind of, shall I say, operation that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, really. I mean, but this is not also dismissing the fact that there are also some elements of unscrupulous characters within the law enforcement agencies who would also even want to have some offenses hanged on innocent people, But the truth of the matter is, if you really want to fight, your case, it is about actually pursuing the case. And I was expecting people to actually fight to go and say, charge Emefiele, and we want to defend him in court to actually prove his innocence. It is not about the whole scheming and the whole protest or the whole argument of saying, no, release Emefiele. I mean, like it said, this is actually what can be considered. With what happened with the currency change, we don't even have the new currency with all the investment.
We're going to have to leave it there, Larry. I beg your pardon. But I want to thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there, Larry. Thank you very much. And
thank you very much.
That's Larry Suraju there. And also Mr. Dennis Amakre. Thank you very much for being able to join us as well. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Indeed. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folari. Bye-bye for now.